Hello world, my name is Mohit Deshpande. Now in the previous video, I showed you how to install the JDK and as well as that little fix for Windows that we have to do to make sure that Java can run on Windows and that we can compile things from Eclipse. And I also showed you how to download Eclipse so that can use it to develop any sort of Java applications for this first module of the Android M development course. I'm going to teach you Java. And in this video, what I really want to do is sort of show you around the Eclipse IDE, which is what we'll be using to learn Java. And then we're going to build our very first Java application. It's going to be a simple Hello World application. So according to the previous video, like I mentioned, you should already have the JDK installed and that's working and everything, and you should have Eclipse downloaded. So you can go ahead and open up Eclipse, and the first thing it's going to ask you is where do you want to set up your workspace. And the workspace is just you can think of it as a physical workspace, so where you can have, several kinds of projects, and you can have multiple workspaces. So you can have maybe a workspace for, all these particular Java projects or these group of related Java projects. So I just have a workspace open right here. I just chose one. And you might be also greeted with a welcome screen that you can exit out of. There'll be like a red X on one of the top tabs, and you can just exit out, and you should have a screen that looks similar to this. Now I might have a couple extra buttons up here, but that's just because I had the ADT installed before we made the switch to Android Studio. Anyway, so this is the environment that we will be working with when we're learning Java. On the left is our Package Explorer, and that's going to have the list of our projects as well as any of the source directories and packages that are included in Java. And we're going to talk more about packages and scope, variable scope, a bit later on, but this is where you would find all of your projects. Now there are a ton of tabs down here. A couple you might find interesting is problems. So if there are any errors in your code, it'll tell you, it'll give you a description of the error, what kind of error it is, as well as a path, and then it'll give you the path to the file that's causing the error, as well as the line number and everything. Javadoc is not going to be terribly useful down here because Eclipse has this awesome thing they're called tooltips, and what they do is they have like these floating Javadoc windows. And what I mean by Javadoc is just documentation on on standard Java objects, or and it'll become a bit more clear. But like Javadoc is just a way for other developers so that when Oracle or when they're adding new objects or new content to Java, it's how other developers know how to use that particular. It's like kind of like a description. Console is another one, and console is really awesome because this is where we're going to get all of our output from Java. When we call, and I'll show you, system.out.println, this is where it's going to print to. We're going to have a console. Now, we're not going to have something exactly similar to this in Android. Instead, we're going to have what's called the logcat, and it's pretty much it functions as it's very similar in function in the sense that in Android, instead of calling system.out.println, I would call log.i or log.d or log. For info, debug, verbose, error, warning, and it would print it out to the logcat when my device or emulate is connected or I'm running the emulator. On the right here is the outline, and we're actually not going to go much into the outline for the beginning, but the outline just shows a list of methods as well as member variables to that particular class. But like I said, we're going to talk a bit more about that when we get to classes. So it's enough talk about Eclipse. Let's actually write some Java code in our very first Hello World application. So before we do anything, we have to create a Java project. So if you're going to go to File, New, Java Project, an little dialog should pop up here. And you're going to make sure this is checked, use default location so that it saves it to your workspace. And give it a name. I'm going to title mine Hello World. Under here, you want to select use an execution environment GRE, and you want to select the latest one that we installed, the Java SE 1.8, and then you'll just want to click Next and Finish. And on the left here, you'll see a project has been created called Hello World, and I can kind of expand this out. And we've already imported all of the Java libraries, and wow, that is a lot of libraries, right? All of this has automatically been imported for us, so we don't have to worry about it. So we can use the standard Java libraries, and we have this little folder created for us that's SRC, and that stands for source. So we're going to have all of our source code, and then if we open this up in Windows Explorer or Finder, we're going to discover that there's another folder called bin, which stands for binary, which is the actual executable. But we don't actually have to do any of that because, well, I'll show you in a second. There's a handy little run button that we click the run button and it'll just execute our Java code. Okay, so now that we have a project created, we actually need to create the Java source file, or what we call class. So you want to go to File, New, and click Class. And then we have to give it a name. We'll just call this Hello World again. And then it says you make a little warning like use of the default package is discouraged. But at the moment, that's not going to be much of an issue since we're still learning. Really, the default packages, and when we talk about packages, we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get into variable scope. So it's fine to use the default package for the moment. Superclass is java.lang.object, and make sure that public is selected and no abstract or final. And we also want to tick this box that says public static void main string brackets args. Right, just click on that and just click finish. And you'll see we'll have generated a Java source file. And we have, public class hello world, and on our left you can see is we have a default package, and then a .java file was created. And the way that it works is we create .java files, and then they're converted when we compile them into .class files, and then the JVM can execute those .class file. Like I mentioned, this is one of the beauties of Java, is I only need to compile it once into a .class, and that .class can be interpreted by the same Java virtual machine on different operating systems. Now, what's important about this public static void main string brackets args string array is actually a string array, and we'll talk about arrays a bit later. And we're really going to talk about all of these modifiers, but we're not going to get to it in this video, of course. We just want to print something out to the console. That is our goal. All we want to do is print something out to the console. So what are we going to do? What we're going to do is we can delete this line. We're going to type in system dot out, and you're going to see autocomplete is going to be really helpful to you. Autocomplete is going to be, one of your best friends because it's going to help you to learn what methods and what member variables you can access. So, if I just typed in system dot, it's going to list all the possible methods that I can access, as well as some of these member variables. But anyway, we're going to talk a bit more about this later. I just want to print something out to the console. So system.out.print ln, which is short for print line. This is going to print something to the console, and I want to print hello world. And then we have to terminate any Java statement with a semicolon that tells the compiler that, hey, this expression is one single expression. And the reason we have the semicolon is, another reason is because I can put multiple statements on one line, even though that's kind of discouraged. Anyway, so I have Java code. This is valid Java code, system.out.println hello world. So now I want to execute this Java code. So how do I do that? Well, first of all, I should save the file by Control S, Command S, or you can go to File, Save. Now that I have the Java code, I want to execute it. So how do I execute it? What do I need to do? Do I need to open any command line or anything? Well, lucky for you, there is an awesome button, Run, here, and that's really what it's going to do. So we're just going to click Run, and in the console it says Hello World. So yay, there we go. We just wrote our very first Java application, and it was just one line of code that we had to write. Very simple. So this is awesome. Congratulate yourselves. This is one of just the first steps into learning the Java programming language, and then going on to apply the Java programming language to learn Android M. So to recap in this video, what we did was we started up Eclipse for the first time, we set the appropriate workspace, and then we created a new project and a new Java file, and then we wrote this Hello World program. We wrote the system.out.println program, and it printed out something in the console. That's really all it did. Like I said, we wrote our very first Java application, and in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what system.out.println is so that we get more accustomed to printing things out to the console, because that's really how we're going to learn this first portion of Java, is really by printing a lot of things out to the console. So I'll talk more about printing stuff out to the console in the next video. Hope to see you then.